All right, good morning, students. How are you today? This God glorious Monday. You guys doing okay? Nice to have you here, guys. Uh, so here we are, continuing our last lesson that was based on screenplays. As you know, we are beginning a new unit where we will be preparing you to write a screenplay very soon. In our last meeting, we were discussing the screenplay. We were checking out this lesson. We were trying to make the case that the screenplay is the single most important thing in a movie. I'm not saying that acting is not important, that directing is not important. All those things are super important because you need them to make a movie. You could not have a movie without these things, but the foundation on which upon the movie is built, I think that we very clearly made the case is the screenplay, the script, right? Because what you're shooting at the end of the day is the screenplay. And we gave you a very good definition of screenplay. We said that a screenplay is the story told with pictures in dialogue and description. That means that the story, you're not saying what people are feeling, you don't say what people are thinking. You're not narrating anything unless you're making a documentary. Narrations is something that should not happen in a movie, uh, ever, ever. It's just bad filmmaking. So you tell your story with images. That's what pictures refer to. You tell your pictures with dialogue. The characters talk to each other, and information is shared that helps push the story forward. We describe the action. We say what is happening and how it is happening. And this is placed within the context of the dramatic structure. So, dramatic structure is something that you need to keep in mind when you're engaging a screenplay. Remember that when we speak about dramatic structure, that is something that you learn in the literature class. How many of you are taking literature? All of you, right? You're in eighth grade. Okay. And the teacher, and you had a unit, you had a collection in the literature class that was titled Plot. You remember that, right? Okay, plot, and that content that you learned in literature, you're gonna bring it over now to cinematography because you're reading short stories, you're reading stories, narrations. Well, in movies, we tell stories also. So the structure is the same. What is different is the language. Instead of using literary language, we're using visual language. Okay? So the dramatic structure is the one that you see in a plot map. You know that in any story, every story, guys, can be, all stories come from something called the monomyth, the original story. And what is the original story? The original story is someone wanted something, but something or someone got in the way of them getting it. Did you hear that? This is important. The original story is someone wanted something, but something or someone got in the way of them getting it. In other words, in a story, we have a character who we're going to call the protagonist or the main character, and this person has needs or goals, or has needs and goals that they need to fulfill or want to fulfill. But there's a problem. We're going to call that a conflict. There's a struggle. There's a situation that will keep that character from getting what they want, from achieving these goals or satisfying these needs. And the story is this struggle this character has to get what he or she wants. That's what the story is going to be. Does it sound familiar? You know, every story has this structure. Every movie has this structure. Someone wants something. The boy wants to ask the girl out for the prom, but the bully asks her out first. Does our protagonist have a problem? Exactly. So you see no problem. Or the girl knows that the only way she can survive is by running through the tunnel all the way to the end, but it is dark and it is filled with her most terrifying fear: spiders. Are you seeing the problem? So you see how this works. So every story, every the dramatic structure is fueled by something that we're going to call conflict. Conflict is the struggle that I need to do something to get what I want, but something keeps me back. It can be something that is internal, like a phobia, like a fear, like an insecurity, or it can be something external, like a monster, like a force of nature, like a hurricane. It can be another character. It can be anything. Okay, something is keeping you from getting what you want. So that is the dramatic structure. We have introduction, raising action because the problem is going to get complicated and going to get worse as the character is trying to solve it. It's going to peak eventually at a moment that we call the climax. The climax is going to be that moment where we know if the character was successful in solving the problem or not. You were saying, madam? Well, as I just said, it can be solved or not. There is no guarantee that the protagonist will succeed. I'm sure that you have seen movies where the main character fails. You know where you do you watch scary movies like horror movies? Which okay, there you go. Because it's not easy to find a movie that is not a horror movie where the heroes fail. But thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. Avengers Endgame is an example of no, I'm sorry, not Endgame, Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War is an example of a movie where the hero fails. You know what? Also, another movie where the hero fails is The Dark Knight. Batman: The Dark Knight. Batman fails. I mean, he captures the Joker at the end, but the damage has been done already. The damage that he wanted to do to Gotham City, that is done. So you have two examples there. And in horror movies, this is a trope that is used a lot. The hero fails. But we don't like that, right? We like our hero to succeed, right? I mean, we don't like our hero to fail. Even if the hero dies, remember, hero dying at the end of the story doesn't mean that the hero failed. If he or she accomplished their mission, okay? Sometimes there's a price to pay for accomplishing your mission, right? And sometimes we have stories where there's a mixture of failure and victory, right? So we have a bittersweet victory. Is this making sense to you guys? Okay, so there was an activity at the end of this lesson that you had to do where you had to decide what type of story structure you were going to use. If it was a character driven story or it was a plot driven story, you were going to choose either the quest, the transformation, the pursuit, or the riddle, and write an essay with that. Why would you choose that particular story structure to tell us to write a screenplay that eventually will become a movie? And you were supposed to send that to my email. One thing I forgot to mention, and I'm going to ask you to forgive me for that. My apologies, please. Was that there was also a project that I don't know if you read it or not, but you were supposed to read it. But since I didn't bring it up, I'm going to assume that responsibility that I did not bring it up. And what I'm going to do to make up for this is extend the date of the deadline. So you know that it says October 30 there. I'm going to push the deadline now to November 4. But that sound fair to you? Okay, so November 4 is the day after Election Day. Instead of this week, that will be Wednesday. Instead of Friday, this is going to be Wednesday of next week. And basically, here's what you have to do with this project. It's a 100-point project that each of you has to do. You're supposed to go to that website or any other website. It's really up to you, and find the screenplay to read. A screenplay is a play. made for a movie. You can find a screenplay, and I want you to read the screenplay. And then in my website, there's a screenplay protocol that tells you how that has to be done, and there's a sheet that you have to use for reporting. If it's that sheet is not in the website, I will be posting it between today and tomorrow. Okay, but your first mission, your first thing you have to do is go to that website or any other website. I'm mentioning that one because I want to make your life easier. But if you don't like anything that you see there, go somewhere else, wherever you want to go to, and find a script. But you need to find a script today, and you're gonna read it. It's like reading a book, but shorter because screenplays are shorter than books. And it's like a book report, but instead of based on a book, it's based on a screenplay. Questions? Okay, if during the week you have any, if you're saying what? Yes, go ahead. You have to complete a report, which is what you're going to send to me. The evidence that you read the evidence that you read the screenplay is your report. And your report is a sheet that's going to be asking specific questions, like what's the title, like who's the author, like who are the characters, things like that. And you will complete that form and send it to me. Okay, no, all the stuff is in my website. You know that, right? My website. Yeah, that's your one stop place for everything related to cinematography. Okay, that's where you find stuff. Stores the stuff is there. Now, remember what I said. I said I'm not sure if the report sheet is there now at this moment. I have to go check. So give me a couple of days. If it's not there, to post it. But that should not keep you from going and finding a screenplay to read. Okay, all right? Yeah, and yeah, it can be any screenplay you want to read. All right? Okay. And if from now on you have any other questions, the best thing you can do when you have questions is ask them, right? And you ask them to me, not to somebody else. Okay? All right. So let's move on quickly to our next lesson. Give me a second here. Guys, whenever you have any question or doubts, feel free to ask me anything you want, okay? I want you guys to be as clear as possible. Okay, this is a continuation of our past lesson, the screenplay two. I posted this in the LMS, and basically, it's giving you pointers on what you need to look at when you're writing a screenplay. I'm going to like gloss over this because you're supposed to read it, right? And remember that you should always keep the dramatic structure in mind when you're writing a story. The story should have an introduction. You're introducing your characters, you're introducing the setting, and you're introducing the conflict, the problem. Later on, your main character, is going to engage that problem, which means he or she are gonna try to solve it, and the problem has to get worse before it gets better. Because if you solve it quickly, dude, that is boring, and you're gonna have a very super short story to tell. What keeps us glued to a story is to see how this guy or this girl are gonna fix the problem that they have. Well, they're trying to solve it, and it gets where like, hey, if they couldn't solve it at the beginning, how are they gonna solve it now? And that's what keeps you interested in the story. To see the struggle and how this character is changed through the struggle. Hopefully, this character is changed in a way that at the end they will be a better person. They will be stronger, or they will be wiser. They will have some type of improvement in who they are. That's what we hope to see. Is that clear? So it's not just stuff that is happening; it's what happens, how it happens, and what the result of that stuff happening. Right? That this because uh, guys, everybody suffers in life, right? Do we all suffer? Yes, right. I mean, some people more than others. What did that suffering do to people? Those struggles, those trials, those tribulations that people have in life. What does that do to people? It can do two things. It can make you a worse person, or it can make you a better person. It's really up to who. It's up to you because, as I said, everybody suffers, right? So it's up to you what you do with that suffering. You're going to use that to become stronger and better, or you're going to use that to become, I don't know, a worse person. Okay, so that happens in the movies also. You know, how do these events affect this character? Will he be better? Will she be better? Will they be worse? Will the problem destroy them at the end? It's up to the type of story, the story you want to tell. So when we're telling a story, there are certain things that we need to keep in mind. Number one, the character development through dialogue. We have to develop characters. We have to like build up this character, which means that the audience gets to know who this person is throughout the movie better. We're going to spend some time with these characters, and this time that we're going to spend with them has to um, give us a good idea at the end of who this person is. That's called character development. One of the ways that we develop a character is through dialogue, through what they say, what we hear people say. What we hear people say says a lot about people. I mean, how do you get to know people? Can you read their minds? Yes, sir. Two things. Yes, sir. Two things. We get to know people by what they do and by what they say. Your action define you. What you do speaks about who you are. If you rob, what do we call you? A thief. A person that lies is called what? A liar. So you see how actions define you. Action define people. Okay? If you're compassionate, well, they call you a good person, right? He's a good person. He's compassionate, right? So what we say also matters because uh, uh, one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite book of all time, the Bible says that out of the abundance of the heart speaks the mouth. In other words, what comes out of your mouth is what's in your heart. So when you see people gossiping and talking bad about other people and abusing people verbally, that talks about that person. When we see people using kind words or good words towards other people and trying to build them up or help them, um, that also talks about that person. So that's how you develop a character. What they say reveals who they are, who these people are, who these characters are, and also the way they talk. I'm giving you the example here from a movie called Casablanca, the most romantic movie of all time. Casablanca, in case you've never seen it, you can see it. Uh, I'm sure you guys will love it. Your mommy will probably love it too. Um, and you have to distinguish one character from another by the way they talk, right? That's how we distinguish people. So you have to be careful how you address the voice. Your characters should have different voices because people are different, even if they belong to the same group. For example, we can have a movie where we have a war movie and they're all soldiers and they have that in common, but we want to be able to distinguish these soldiers to know who they are. We can, let's say that we have a gruff Texan, a loud New Yorker, and a cowardly Midwesterner. They speak differently. So when you write these characters, they have to talk like they are from we say they are. So you have to keep in mind how you're going to write the dialogue of these characters because people respond differently to different situations or to the sometimes to the same situation. Okay, let's say that you want to make a romantic movie and you have a pair of lovers, right? I think the best example I can use is from Lady and the Tramp. Have you seen Lady and the Tramp? This is, guys, a Disney cartoon. You've never seen Disney and the Tramp? I'm sorry, not. I'm sorry. That's not Disney and the Tramp. It's Lady and the Tramp. What am I saying? Of course, you haven't seen Disney and the Tramp. That's not a movie. It's Lady and the Tramp. Um, if you have Disney Plus, I think it's there. And there's a scene that you can watch right here. You have to watch the videos. Remember, you click there, and we'll show you the scene where we see how these two dogs that are in love, they're dogs, but they're different kind of dog. Not only different kind of dog, they have different personalities, and the way that they talk and the way that they act is different. It distinguishes them. So that is something that makes it interesting. Sometimes you add a little bit of conflict between the lovers. They have some kind of problem that makes the affair more interesting, also, right? Because if not, it's boring, and nobody likes boring stories, right? So we also have to take care of action development, and the description is very important. You have to be creative of how you describe each action scene. Be brief and be to the point. Don't go winding on and on and on and on. And always write in present time. Remember that when you're writing a screenplay, you write what you see. We see a person walking down the street. We see a woman that is moaning and crying and sobbing. You don't write she was sad and cried. No, she moaned and sobbed, and she is crying in present tense, and that will give us an idea of how she's feeling in the inside. So you have to be follow certain conventions when you're writing a screenplay. Um, you can look at all these conventions when you're writing your screenplay. There is something that you also need to pay attention. That's called a narrative arc. The important characters in your story need to have an arc. That means that we paid enough attention to these characters to see how they change through the story. Remember that the events affect them, and that's what we call a story arc. You know what story arc means is that your character's story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And at the end, they're not in the same place where we saw them at the beginning. And again, they can be either a better person, they improve some aspect of their personality, or it got worse, depending on the story that you're writing. Here are some pointers on how you should write your screenplay. Please read that. Some rules that you have to follow when you're writing a screenplay. You're writing it in a certain format, and you have to use a particular font. This format has been around for a while, and it has not changed. This format belonged to the time when writers wrote on a typewriter. You know what a typewriter is? Anybody? You don't know what a typewriter is? Dude, a typewriter is a machine that was used before the invention of computers. People wrote on typewriters. You would put a paper in and type on a keyboard and then take the paper out. That was a typewriter. You've probably seen that in movies, right? But yeah, typewriters. Well, these rules exist since those days, but we still use the same rules today. They have not changed. And the rules say that you're going to use a font that is called Courier. Remember that a font is a letter style, that you're supposed to center dialogue, that you're supposed to use all caps when you're writing the name of the characters. All these rules are there, so you need to look at all that. Guys, I'm going to refer you to. How many of you use your computer a lot? Okay, yeah. What I mean you use it a lot is not to watch YouTube videos, guys. Okay, I mean to work. And you know how to download programs, apps. There's an app that I want to recommend to you guys. It's right there. There are apps that help you write screenplays. They bring the font that you need and they format everything for you. I'm going to recommend an app that I use to write my screenplays. So that way I don't have to worry about justifying and organizing things, because it does it all for me. All I have to do is just worry about what I'm going to write. And that app is called Fade In. Do you see it there in the bottom? Fade In. There's a paid version, but there's a free version. So I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm not asking you to pay a penny on anything. Because if you're like me, I don't like paying for stuff because I'm poor. Okay? So I need stuff that is free. So Fade In has a free version. I would recommend that you download it. The Windows, they have a Windows version. If you have a Mac, I think they have a Mac version for Apple computers. So I would recommend that you download it and start messing around with it because you're going to have a project. You're going to be writing a screenplay soon. Is that clear, guys? It's called Fade In. I don't know about the mobile basics. I haven't been to their website in a while because I've had this program for years. So maybe they have a new product out there for people that want to use a tablet or a phone to write. But since I use my laptop, um, it's called Fade In. Okay. Oh, you no, you can download it. You can download the app from that their website into your computer. Well, read carefully. Don't do. I'm not asking, guys. Don't do it now. Hold on. Hold your horses. You're going too fast. Read carefully the instructions, so you will do the right thing. If you have a Windows operating system, then that's what you need to download. If you have an Apple, then it's a Mac version or the whatever the Apple operating system is called. Read carefully so you will not download the wrong thing, and also so you will download the free version because you don't want to end up paying for stuff. As I told you, the free version. I have it installed in some of my computers, and I love it. It's the one I used to use the one called what was it called? Celtics, but I got rid of that because it had too many limitations. And this one is fantastic. I love it. And this is the one that I used to write screenplays. So I recommend it for you. Please download it, but read carefully the instructions before you do anything. Okay. All right. Having said that, I want you to keep in mind something, right? When we talk about screenplay time, how long are most movies? How long are they? 2 hours. Let's round it. Let's round it to 2 hours. Movies are usually, I mean, I'm not saying that movies are not longer or shorter. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that on average, movies are like 10 hours. You have movies that are an hour and a half, and they don't need to be longer than that. You have movies that are 3 hours, right? God, they need to be that long. But your average movie is 2 hours. So your average screenplay has 120 pages. What does that mean? How many minutes do you have in 2 hours? 120. If you have 60 minutes in 1 hour, 60 plus 60 is 120. That's 2 hours. So your average screenplay has 120 pages. That roughly translates to 1 page per minute. Does that make sense to you? When you read a screenplay, 1 page is more or less. I'm not saying that it's written in stone and that it is a precise measurement. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that more or less 1 page is equivalent to 1 minute of screen time. That's why your typical screenplay is 119, 120, 122 pages, something like around 120 for a feature film. So if I ask you to make a 10-minute short film, how many pages of screenplay should you write? 10, more or less 10. So you see how that works. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you are composing or reading a screenplay, okay? And collaboration, read this about collaboration. Collaboration is about people working together, and people need to work together, and we need to use our strengths and let allow our weaknesses to be picked up by somebody who has a strength in that area. That's why we collaborate. When I collaborate with someone, I'm bringing my strengths to the team, and my weaknesses, I hope, are being picked up by somebody else who is stronger than I am in that area. And when we pull those strengths together, we are an invincible team. That's what collaboration is all about. And collaboration is the name of the game in filmmaking. Filmmaking is very collaborative. It depends on people that bring their strengths and their interests to the table, and they pull those resources and they use that to create something, to create art, right? Which is a film. So read this information about collaboration. It's very interesting. It talks about how they collaborated in Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you have some reshoot questions that mean that this is something that you need to answer and upload. And that will be that. Do you have any questions before I leave, guys? I know I took a little bit more of the time than I was supposed to, but I had to. Okay. The work that you have to turn in next week, which is the report, that's individual. That's an individual work. You will look for a screenplay. I send you to a website that has many, many, many. But if you don't like anything there, go somewhere else and find a screenplay, read it, and then later on, later in the week, you can complete the report and send it to me next week. Okay? Okay, that's it. But we're gonna have another project very soon, and you guys are gonna write a screenplay, a real screenplay, and that is collaborative effort. There, you're gonna be working together.